begins to build up in you, then you kind of have no choice except to find a way to release it. But I will say that the fact that it builds up in you in the first place is a result of it creating blockages on an internal level, even before it gets to the point where you need to release it, like in a conventional way. So the better you get at recognizing internally what's going on when that stress is being created, the better you'll be able to release it before it gets to that point where you feel like you're going to explode. So you can allow that to flow through you and make your decisions not based on how stressed it makes you, but make your decisions based on a response to that situation where you can let the stress go before it even gets to the point where it feels like it's driving you crazy. But that is kind of a difficult thing to do. So anyway, does anybody else have any questions or anything? I think I was supposed to lead for this morning. What did y'all talk about last week? I was not here.
Well, we talked about the holy breath, and our journey is not bridging the gap of distance, but of awareness of who we are. That the way we think about distance in the natural is not the same way you think about distance spiritually. And reminded us that even when we are apart from, like in the net, we're apart from those we might love. All we got to do is think of them, and that brings them right there. So distance is different spiritually than in the dark. But his I guess his focus was realizing that we are created in the image of Elohim, and that being in the present is what bridges the distance. We don't think about yesterday. We don't dwell on tomorrow. It's being right now.
Yeah, okay. I guess that kind of relates to what I said, or what we were talking about the previous week, where I mentioned what centering yourself is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly true. So everything is unfolded outwards from the center. So if you go back into the center, then what was seemingly separate and distant on the outside, if you fold it back in, it collapses together. Mm. It's very strange to think about, but even like there's legends and part of the whole oral tradition of the various spiritual traditions include things like when you go somewhere or when you walk somewhere or whatever means of transportation you take, your state of mind determines how long it will take, or your connectedness to your source or your center determines how much actual physical time it takes. So if you have recognized and embodied and come to the realization that everything is eternal and move the seat of your awareness deeper into your center, then it literally takes less time to get places. Because of what time is, because of what this perceived external distance actually is. Mm-hmm. So when Jesus was doing all that walking, probably didn't take him as much time unless he wanted it to, mm-hmm. Yeah. As it would have taken anybody else. Now the other thing with that is, if you are the master, if you are the teacher who's leading your students around all these places and stuff, their own sense of themselves will also affect the situation. Mm-hmm. So the relationship between teacher and master is such that the students give permission to the master to overwhelm is not a good word, but to take control, and that's a little bit less of a not a good word, but take control of their own experience so that whatever imperfections in the understanding or the experience that the students would have, the master makes up for. So they're in his bubble or her bubble. So they all experience things similarly.
At what point, though, is the student responsible for the student self?
Oh, whenever the student recognizes that he or she is able to be.
Okay. So, it's an
So I guess I would
intervention.
say, whenever you understand what it is you believe you need to understand, when you get it, then you become responsible for it.
That makes sense.
So when you know that you no longer need the influence of the teacher because you have become a teacher.
So when we know that we know and we have become responsible for self, then part of our role is to be the teacher for someone else.
Yes. And teaching and learning are two sides of the same coin. You can't do one without the other, and vice versa. So you can kind of see how you're moving. It's like there's a waterfall coming from your source, from your internal self. And you are traveling up the waterfall, going towards that source, but still allowing things to pass through you as you are passing them on to others. So it's like you're swimming up a waterfall or swimming upwards against a river, only there's no resistance. Or we're trying to get to the point where there's no resistance. And it's that resistance that begins to build up internally and create all the stress and all the psychological weight and all of that stuff. But I will say that it's perfectly natural that that weight and that stress develops in the first place. Because without it, we wouldn't begin to seek the very reason for its presence in our internal experience anyway.
Is it fair to call that weight waste also? Psychological weight and waste?
I wouldn't call it waste. What do you mean, in the sense that it's...
I mean, like Evelyn had to, one
Useless?
way of releasing for her was to scream into her pillow. That, in a sense, it's getting rid of. And that's what you do with waste.
Yeah.
You expel it, or you put it in a place where it belongs.
I would think of it more, do you know anything about trigger points?
No, but see, you understand it from your perspective that way.
But to me, it's the screaming is release, it's opening something. I don't think you're getting rid of something.
Where something was in that space that wasn't open.
But that's right, it was blocked. That's
What was blocking it?
well, the idea of a trigger point is, in your muscle you create fascia and things like that that block the flow of blood, etc.
So something was blocking it.
Right, so by pressing on it, you release and allow it to flow again. You're not getting rid of anything, if you know what I'm saying.
Doesn't waste blocks?
Well,
Whether it's a
we're not
block
gonna
or
get
it's waste, it's
Yeah,
still
but
something that
maybe
has
it's
to be
semantics, yeah.
released. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think there's truth in both of those sentiments, or both of those sound good. Like you do have to allow things to pass out of you.
That's what I
And
meant.
the only reason that we allow that is so that the flow can continue properly. So it's like it's two sides of the same coin again.
Okay.
So, I really want to help us see. Gotta let my cat out. Well, not my cat, but that cat.
There.
You don't want to mess Evelyn up this morning.
he wouldn't put his head up. That's all I was waiting on. Like,
Python.
that's why he has a cat.
Don't let your cat out anywhere near Kevin's python. Kevin's sitting here.
Oh, cats. Cats are
That's
kind
a
of
trigger
special.
point.
Um,
You got a
Anyway,
cat trigger
so-
point.
I was saying that I really hope I really want to give you a sense of how to do this for yourself psychologically, and how to do this for yourself spiritually. Because I think I mentioned, I think it was the last time I was speaking, was that even with your health, it works the same way. So your physical health and your physical body is the way it is because of certain blockages and energy buildups and things out of order. And you can put that back in order by shifting your focus of awareness to not necessarily focus on the physical problem, but turn your intention towards allowing the thoughts that produce the physical problem to correct themselves. So even if you don't know exactly what to think in terms of words or whatever, that's is not even an issue, because if you direct your intention towards it, then even without being able to fully articulate it, what it is that you want or need, your intention will take care of the rest of it. Which is why that thing, I don't know if it's still on the board, but the thing that says set the direction of your intention and just be. Because what your intention is it's the outward movement from your center. And if you connect to it, you're connecting to a deeper part of you than this physical self that you are. And if you correct it from there, the rest will flow through the physical self and put that back to order much quicker.
Okay, so how do you do that again?
So
Buy next book.
Buy my
Yeah.
book.
I think Pastor Richard said this, I don't even remember when I heard it, but so let's say I have a particular health problem, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Instead of worrying about it or focusing on it, I will say, okay, I will accept it for what it is, but I will recognize that it is the result of thoughts that have come before it. And I will concern myself with putting those thoughts back in order. And my physical body will take care of itself. So it's kind of like
Welcome to the conference. Please enter your conference code now.
choosing what you focus on.
The red one.
Whether you,
I'm sorry, I didn't get a valid conference ID. Please enter your
It's trying to cover your head.
I'll wait for that. Oh, am I on a laptop screen, by the way?
No, we got you on a TV.
Please speak your
Oh, there's
phone.
the other TV. Okay.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, sorry about the other TV. So
Well, one thing that Pastor said, I think, is I am not my thoughts, I think them. So that does tell me that I have the power to, even though something comes in my mind, I have the power to focus on and think what I desire to think.
yeah,
But why the scripture says,
As a man
as a
thinketh,
man thinketh, so is he.
but that's what's in your heart. That's what you focus on.
as man thinketh, so is he, because depending on what you think is what you turn into. Is what that is talking about.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah, and what is in your heart is what you think?
yes, that is the that's the source from which everything else flows out. So whatever you hold there will produce what it must in the physical and everything that is external to that.
I think we kind of like went fast with that, or I'm not just catching. I heard you, but then maybe I just need to let it marinate inside of me because, say it again, Nick.
So whatever you hold in your heart, and again, your heart, it doesn't refer only to this physical muscle, but whatever you hold in your heart, that's the source and that's your center, and everything else flows outwards from that. So what you hold in it has to produce something in the physical and the more external. So if you change that first, everything else flows with it because of what the physical is,
Okay.
or because of what the material actually is.
Okay.
So that's why you have things, sayings like guard your heart, or it doesn't relate to just love.
Right.
Love,
Right.
physical love, which
No.
is what we usually use that, but it relates to spiritually.
Right.
What you're allowing in your center.
Yes. Or what you are cultivating in your center
Yes,
at
yes.
the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
What you're allowing in it, after you've allowed something in it, whether you give it light or give it life so it grows or not, depending on what it is. Because that will reverberate outwards through everything that you are.
So what happened to me this morning was not coincidental. It's amazing we talking about this because, I mean, after I had gotten over feeling depressed or whatever, those distractions that I had, and then my higher self told me, you know, just don't give life to that anymore. Don't give energy to those things that are distracting. So I needed to know. I don't know. It was necessary. Apparently.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that even if you find yourself stressed or worked up with something, you don't have to worry about it. It's not like a reflection on your overall spiritual state or progress. I mean, it kind of is, but not in the sense that we think of, where like we get all guilty or ashamed or whatever. It just is. And just recognize it for what it is and realize that it's showing you something about what's going on at a much deeper level as well. So, does anybody have any questions anyway before I keep going?
Well, that's, what you said was sort of like when we say, I am a nurse, but that's not who I am. I am a mother, but that's not who I am. I am a daughter, but that's not who I am. The same kind of scenario. I'm more than that. What I do does not define who I am, and so even as someone somewhat spiritually aware, stuff is gonna come up, negative stuff, whatever, and I can't embrace those to the extent that I allow them to begin to define who I am, because I am not my problems.
Mm-hmm.
I am not my issues.
Right. And that's something profound in what you said, because you are, there is a difference between the I am and the I will be.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a man thinketh, so he will be. But
Wow.
what you be is not you, you are the I am.
Mm-hmm.
And when you recede deeper into the experience of the I am, you can choose the direction of will be.
Mm-hmm. But will be doesn't ever come, because if you're always defining things from the perspective of I am, you always are. You know what I mean? Even in the natural time that goes by, it I don't know how to explain
It's the
it.
effect of living in the now.
Mhm.
Too many people get caught up on what's going to happen tomorrow. We save money because we're afraid of what's going to happen tomorrow. We think about yesterday, we hold on to the past because we really think it actually affects us. And really, it can't touch you.
Mm-hmm.
It can't
Unless you let it.
unless you let it. So the sense of living in the now eliminates all of that. You are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sort of takes shackles away, doesn't it?
It takes away.
Yeah, it does.
There is no tomorrow. You've never existed in tomorrow or yesterday. You've always been here, now.
You sound like Pastor Richard. Put something in your brain.
Who's that?
This is Kevin, your cousin.
Oh,
He can't
Steph,
see
what's up? Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
So Barbara and Nick, can y'all elaborate more on when Pastor made the statement about I? What is I? Can we go back into that?
What is I as in
He,
I distinct from I am?
I don't know.
he was talking about the higher self versus the creator of all versus Elohim
Okay.
being a part of the.
I think he was talking about the I am too. I think he was saying literally in like Aramaic or something, it's the I, not I am. It's I, or something like that.
That makes sense. I was gonna say it sounded like a if we made that distinct from I am, it would be like a further receding into your center or the source of what you are. That is the ultimate point source of your awareness and your consciousness, which is even more fundamental than that I am, which is like one step outwards. It's the beginning of the outwards movement from the I in that sense, anyway.
It's the moment before the Big Bang.
Yeah.
I have a thought about existing in the now. And it's kind of the flip side of there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow, which is that you exist in yesterday and tomorrow and now all at the same time, which is how you can change what happened in the past by changing your perception of it, or affect what happens in the future by determining it, I guess, with your desire or your will. Am I getting that wrong?
No, that sounds exactly what we do, like what we do. So just as you said, we're usually worried about the present or the past or stop that. Sorry. Sorry, Ellen, it's just gonna be a tale occasionally. Pay attention to you. So we're usually worried about the past or the future, or the past or the future. So that worry is what we hold in our hearts regarding this experience we call time. So that worry then reverberates outwards and affects our perceptions of the past and future. So instead of treating things in our past like lessons that were given to us, and instead of treating things in our future like opportunities to do whatever it is that we want to do, we instead see those as things that hold us back or limitations that don't allow for the fullest expression of the I, or the fullest ability to experience the I. And it's very, very difficult to think about time because we always think about it in terms of one thing happens after another, after another, after another, in like a linear sense. So when even you said, Janice, that we can change the past, you can change the past because the only reason the past has any influence is by its effects, that its lasting effects on us. If before I even go any further, those effects that keep lasting in us are psychological, they're spiritual, they're emotional, they're all of those things. So if we can connect with our deeper sense of what we are and go beneath all those emotional, psychological effects and choose to reverberate something different, we can change those lasting effects in us. So instead of, oh, I messed up 3 weeks ago, your attitude towards that event changes completely, and so does its reverberating effect. So instead of, oh, I messed up 3 weeks ago, oh, look at how I was given, or whatever you want to say. Here is a situation where I learned what not to do. But it's more than that. It's not just like a little pep talk to yourself. You're actually changing the past, if that makes sense.
I kind of like the way you said, because it resonated with me. When we think about quote unquote past, they were simply lessons in the now of that experience. Because even in the past, that was now time. Lessons in the now of that experience that were given to us to help us become aware of who we really are. And the future is opportunities in the now of that experience that continue to push us toward awareness of who we are. So it really is no negative or anything. Whatever that now experience is, and whatever we find ourselves confronted with, whether it is a lesson or an opportunity, is what we do with it in that now experience that continues to create and push us, if we allow it to, toward who we are.
Can I
Or
add
who
to
he
that?
is.
Yeah.
Who he is.
So, exactly. So check it out. If we dealt with all the fears and all the apprehension and all the anxiety that we had, if we dealt with all of that and went straight to our core, then our future would already be set up right now.
Yeah.
The only reason we don't do what we want to do is because somewhere along the line we get afraid, we get discouraged, and all that BS that we teach ourselves. If we dealt with that in the now, then we wouldn't have to deal with it later, and it would just be a matter of time. But what is time? We can get into that later.
Kevin had a question.
I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. We've all actually had this experience of changing the past before. Most of us, we don't realize that we do it. We already do it inadvertently, and it's until you do it intentionally do you understand the true effects of what's happening. Think about any situation and you're explaining it to someone and you say, looking back on it,
Yeah.
and then whatever you say after that is the past. That is the new past. Anything after looking back on it, that is your new past. And the older that we get, like as Nick was saying, I mean, this is relative to time, I guess you would say. But the more experiences that we have, the more we're able to change. You can change the past more than once. You can look back on the same situation and say, looking back on it, new thing. Yeah. Just like that.
Just a different perspective.
Yep.
That's all I have.
So this begins to get into the subject of what is the heart exactly. So I call my own website, my own stuff that, but what is the heart and what is that we've been talking about in here? So I have said, I think Pastor Richard has said, it's more than just a physical organ that pumps the blood through your veins, but the physical is a reflection of the spiritual principle and the spiritual thing, for lack of a better term, that the heart actually is. So I know we have said here, and it has been said, that the life of a human being or our life is in our blood. So the heart pumps the blood. So even though the blood is what allows you to live, without the heart, there would be no movement of that. So if we look at that spiritually, the heart is the thing that keeps the energy flowing. And on its simplest terms, the heart is what keeps energy moving, flowing properly through our interaction with each other. I can't give support. I can't help somebody if I'm mad at them and they're mad at me. So the heart, in addition to the physical, is the energy of compassion, which gives a channel for the life energy to flow between people. It is the energy of uniting apparent opposites and our active ability to do that. That's what the heart is.
And that's why it's in the center of the tree of life too, because it's the very difference between whether you can bridge that awareness of physical versus spiritual in a sense too.
Yes. And everything is in the center of the tree of life because everything unfolds outwards from it. It's all connected through it, and it all returns to it when it folds back up in it. I could, I want to draw some stuff. Am I on a screen big enough to do that?
I think so. I can always make it a little bigger.
Oh, okay. Here, I'll set up my thing. But, in the meantime, though, does that make sense? Or
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your sense for how you're able to translate this in terms of what you experience, like right now sitting in this room. Because you can be aware of the processes that produce thought, and you can be aware of where those processes originate, even in your experience right now. And even just contemplating that will begin to move you deeper into that experience, or the I am, or your center. Almost done.
You look like me over there.
I look like you.
With all those wires and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like the 1/4 of my room is just electronics.
Is this like a digital sketch pad?
Yeah.
Well, you do live in a closet.
What's that?
Ah,
Oh, cool.
And it comes with a pen. Okay. So what I wanted to show was, I like drawing stuff, but what I wanted to show was what I meant by the things unfolding from the center. So I'll set up a little thing here. But this also relates to what I was talking about before, or Barbara, you were talking about before, distance
yeah,
being not what we think it is in terms of how we experience it physically.
yeah.
Because if everything is connected to that center that's in you, then you can pass through the wormhole that exists in you. So has everyone heard that term, wormhole?
Yeah.
Is the exact concept. You connect 2 points that appear distant, and then you just flip. But you have to do it by going through the center. You have to pass through the eye of the needle, as it were. Okay, almost done. Yeah. So I'll try to share my screen real quick. So it should pop up in a second.
Got it.
Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Make that a little bigger. So, so what I was saying with the center, so let's say your heart is in the center, or the I, or the I am is in the center. And
You recording this?
No, the camera's for fun.
Huh?
Yes, recording it.
oh, sorry, anyway, I'm back. Okay. So, I know I've drawn this before, but that's because so many things can be traced back to what this symbol actually is. So this is astrologically a representation of the sun. It's a representation of your pineal gland. It's a representation of your center. So the I would be in here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So everything else, which is the physical experience, your emotions, your general psychological state, takes place somewhere between your inner self, or your innermost self, or the I, and the external. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what happens between those two places again?
So your innermost self, your I would be here at the dot in the middle.
Mhm.
And then your emotional self, your psychological self,
Okay.
all takes place within that internal space.
Or I am.
So your awareness, however, could be anywhere. You could be focused out here as an eyeball. You could be looking at your emotions. You could be looking at all this stuff, and whatever you're internally focused on, that's what you reverberate with. So when stress and chaos is like built up in here, in that internal space, and you focus on it, it reverberates it that much more. To the point where it begins to affect your external life too.
Mm.
You get to treat people differently and all that stuff.
So you have to be careful, because what happens with you directly affects not only you.
Right.
Well, also, as life-giving entities, whatever we focus on is what grows.
Right.
What?
So another way to represent this
The butterfly.
would be to say that that same point is here, and then the external things are out here. So here we have external, and then we have the I. So the circle would be like this or something. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this point connects everything in that circle as well as everything that's outside of it. Because it only appears to be outside of it because we are busy being focused with the little eyeball on the outwardmost projection of this. So when we look at things out here in physical and we see object A, which will be a present, and object B, which will be a cup of something with a straw in it, and we see the physical distance between these two, it's apparent, it seems obvious to us that those things are separate. Not so. They appear separate because we don't know how to focus on what connects them. So when you move the seat of your awareness deeper into your center up here, then you can begin to see how this distance grows smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of your experience, you begin to gain awareness. You can call it like a sixth sense, but it's more than that. There's like a bunch of them of how these things are connected. So instead of seeing these two things, you feel these two things. And you feel the energy that exists between them. So instead of just seeing physically, you feel spiritually, or you know and see spiritually. So this is, and you know how like there are movies in there. Has everyone seen the movie Avatar? I think, yeah. So at a certain point in the movie, the main lady scientist is dying, and they say they want to replace her body. And they say she has to pass through the eye of Awa, which is the creator in that movie anyway. And she has to return in order for it to work. So what they were describing was this process. She has to go to the center, and then once there, if she chooses, she has to project herself back out and return to this physical experience. This is exactly what happens when we make our transition at the point of physical death. And this is the cycle of reincarnation that many traditions talk about. And this same center is accessible now. And the whole point of what we are engaged in is to merge these two, so that we don't have to keep doing this. Although we will, as long as we need to, as long as we're still learning. But over the course of lifetimes and over the course of your experience, in those lifetimes, we will begin to make this distance, this apparent distance, less. And we will return to our own center. If that makes sense. So just like I said, I think it was the last time I spoke, this is the eye of the hurricane right here. There's your hurricane. And everything on the outside of it is all the stuff we have to deal with that can be distracting, can be painful, can be whatever. But you make contact with this, and you become conscious of your ability to move with this, and what your center has access to, and the energy that's flowing through it, then you become the eye of the storm, and everything moves around you, as opposed to you feeling like you're getting moved and pushed around by everything. So when we look at the physical Earth. Here's Earth. Somebody's house. And here's somebody else's house. And we're all the way up here. This physical experience is a projection from our innermost self. It's a hologram that we are participating in. The way you get from A to B without having to experience what we call time is to go to the center and then return outwards at a different spot. Think, and then you just show up.
Well, Nick, since you keep mentioning time, I'm going to go ahead and explain just a little bit of it, so hopefully the concept is understood or felt better. The only thing time is a measure of the position of physical objects, which also include physical experience as well. So without just seeing yourself as a physical entity and that's it, that's you operating out of time. The same thing, and even when Kevin was mentioning a little while ago as far as changing an experience, where every time you have an experience in your head over and over and over again, not even mattering whether you have that experience or you experience that experience of something good, bad, you even flip-flop back and forth between those two things. At that particular time, you are operating outside of time with your experience. So with that, back on this picture what Nick is on right now, with the cup and the picture, that is only you experiencing when you see these two things separate from a physical plane by looking at it as far as their distance is concerned, etc.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I hope that wasn't confusing, but
No, what I hear you saying is there is no time or distance when you're operating outside from your center, because you don't because you don't see time and you don't see distance when you look at it from that perspective.
Correct. And even with the experiences, I guess experiences in a way could be looked at as time if you were to try to organize your experiences in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
Instead of just, I guess, sticking and concentrating on that experience that you're having at the moment, no matter what that might be. So say, for instance, some type of emotional experience.
So we put it in a linear perspective when we choose to fixate on it and focus on it, by just letting it flow through us as what was said earlier, as either an opportunity or a lesson learned. It doesn't have to become solidified into something almost physical that we can't get beyond, a physical barrier in a sense, or a psychological barrier in a sense. When we choose not to fixate on it, it does not have to become that barrier.
Yes, and even when you do fixate on it, it makes, it's funny because it's done with logic, but then logically it doesn't make sense either anyway. It's because an event from a linear standpoint, a line segment, it never ends. So if a line segment never ends, you can never actually measure it at a particular point and say this is the ultimate result of this particular action, as if that is the end all of that particular action that actually took place. So even when you look at the butterfly effect, for example, when you look at that book, at what point can you say this is the end of the story? The story never ends from a linear standpoint. So if the story never ends from a linear standpoint, is it completely impossible to ever say this was a good thing or this was a bad thing?
Sure.
Question. Hello?
Go ahead.
The only reason an experience is seen in time has nothing to do with the experience itself. But it has everything to do with where we perceive the experience to take place. The time comes between the place where the experience happened and the space that you see that it took you to get to that point. Example, if you have an experience at foundation, the reason you see it being at foundation is because you left home to come to foundation. So you see, so the experience actually does not have time. It's taking place all at once, but it is simply the movement that you perceive you are making between points that makes that experience seem like it's happening in space and time. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah, you set your fixed points in a sense.
Right, you set your own, when you set a fixed point, that's setting time. That's making time real for you. Because you can relive every experience in an instant, just flowing through your mind, but you haven't moved your body. So the experience that you had yesterday at 12 o'clock, you can relive it today at 12, as well as the one that you just had a moment ago. But you're not. But all those experiences are there. If somebody hurt your feelings yesterday at 12 o'clock, you can still feel it today. But the only reason you call it today is because you left the place where it took place and came to this place. You understand?
Yeah.
So the experience really doesn't have the time. It's not bound by time. It's actually your thoughts on the experience in terms of space. No. I quit.
Yes.
No,
Well, no,
we agree.
But take that, go, hey, throw it on out there. So what you just said, if I can extrapolate a bit from that, then the whole concept of life, what we call life, only consists of what we call aging, because we make these distinctions by focusing on certain points. Otherwise, I'm not going to articulate it well, but just to carry that out. Otherwise, life is the experience, but the fact that we apply these other qualifiers or whatever markers, place it here, place it there, place etc., gives rise to all these concepts that now rule us by the sexiness of their attractiveness, or they're attractive. And so we wind up with concepts of aging and all this kind of thing, which manifest in
Physical.
things we see in the mirror.
But that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, I'm going home. Although I don't have to go
So I
home.
quit now.
You've already read.
No, I never left. No, I mean, well, that's okay. Play with those words. That's hence the books that are written about. You never took the journey. The journey, you know what I'm saying? You were on the journey, but you never left.
Yeah.
And huh? What does that mean? Well, there's plenty of books written about that sort of thing.
Yeah. Dreaming.
The only thing I wanted to add earlier, Janice said something about, and we just moved on, and just wanted to, something about you will, or you use two words to make something happen. And I think I see this in other techniques, physical therapy techniques, other things that I won't bore you with, but the trick is, it's effortless. You know, if you go back to the set the direction of your intent and then just be, being is effortless. You don't make it happen. You don't even will it. This is the notion that I have of free will, which isn't fully developed at all, but it's not an imposed, it's a state, it's almost like Sharia law. I mean, it's a state of natural wholeness from which you act. So none of us act with free will. It doesn't mean you do whatever you want. That's outside that's the distortion when you're spinning outside of the center. And so it's off. You know what I'm trying to say? The real, but that's the place in which you can do what the idea of free will offers you the opportunity to do, which is connect to the Creator.
Well, back up, because Sharia law has nothing to do with free will.
That has
Well,
to do
okay, I
with
just threw it in
imposed
there.
will.
The thing is,
Well, on the contrary, the idea of Sharia law is if you're living in connection and unity with the deity, none of those laws apply to you. It's the Ten Commandments all over again.
And
I think
Tiffany
it's
and
kind
Lois
of,
would agree with you.
it's kind of like being, the way I've tried to explain it before, is the feeling or remembering that you are eternal. And I say remembering because most of the time, you know, in the life that we exist in here, we associate and affiliate with this thing that's on us, our bodies. I asked my father the other day, I asked him what his name was. He told me Rolando. That was the name that was given to him in this physical realm. So to ask someone what their name is, to ask yourself, what is your name? And when did you enter your body? That puts you into that eternal feeling of, or perspective of, this is not me. This is not me. Me is, and they say the eyes are the window to the soul. They don't mean you look into someone else's eyes and you can see their soul. They mean that the soul, essentially, the only physical relation as far as visually thinking, this is the only way you can see out. It's through your eyes. So these are the windows. Your soul lives inside. And I guess when you look at it like that, when you get to that eternal point, if you just focus on being eternal, then the time just kind of, it washes away. If anybody has any experience in meditating, I'm sure you've all gotten to that point where within your meditation time, what is time? I mean, when you're done, you look at the clock and you ask yourself where you have to be next.
Well, while you're doing the
But
meditation.
right, but while you're there, you're just there.
And in that experience that Kevin just explained is beyond time, and not only is it beyond time, that is actually what you're doing when you feel someone, when you're connected with someone. And it is void of actual rules telling you exactly how to do this, because rules only control something that is physical. And at that moment, like I said, being connected to someone, feeling someone, you're beyond physical. You have to be beyond physical in order to literally, to feel someone.
Questions or anything? Because I know that might sound a bit technical, but what we're really trying to say is that if you let things flow through you, then you can get closer to the source of your own free will and your center, from which all things flow outwards from.
Well, I would have to think, certainly for me, the question has always included, not the question, those kind of statements or understandings have always included a sense of, okay, how do I get there? Right? And so we tend to use words like technique, exercises. So it would seem, and my real source for this, because I certainly never learned it in any Christian teachings, was what clumsiness I have in understanding the Buddhist tradition. It's practice, effort. To get to an effortless state, you have to expend effort. This is the idea of the Zen koan, etc. So you can have an epiphany, which is a momentary connection, if you want, or understanding, but the question is, how do you keep that?
That's a good question. If there is something in the Christian tradition, the mystic Christian tradition called running and returning. It's like the up and downs that you go through. You feel connected, oh, everything's flowing, wow, I feel great, wow, you're back into the chaotic state. The secret of being able, well, first you have to be able to recognize what it feels like to be in those states. And even in the chaotic state, or more or less connected feeling state, recognize the exact same things there. And what your higher self is doing is essentially allowing you to move further away from it, back into this physical, less connected state, so that you can learn to walk on your own 2 feet, having just given you a glimpse of that experience of connectedness. Now send you back out into the wild so you can master it.
Okay, and Nick,
The way,
let me just ask you specifically.
Yep.
Because I did a fair amount of reading a long time ago, so it's all confused and messed up in my head now, but I can't remember the name of the monk. But what tradition are you talking about? What scriptural base or reference are you talking about?
so I'm talking about Gnostic Christianity. And the oral tradition and the stuff that's come down through, I guess, what we've come to call Gnostic Christianity, although I think there's more than one group who call themselves that. But all of that stuff is it's things that were kept out of the canon books that we were given, that we can still read. It's so much like Buddhism and the mystical aspects of Hinduism. They all say the same, similar things. And
Their roots are the same.
yes, they are.
Well, truth is truth, eh?
What you just described, Nick, as running and returning is similar to the experience that Evelyn started with this morning. The running and the returning. The returning
Exactly.
was acknowledging who she was and why am I putting myself through all of this. The running was the experiencing of, the sense of depression, blah, 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 blah. So we all have those ebbs and flows in a sense.
Exactly.
In our lives.
And we have those ebbs and flows because that is part of who we are and what we are designed to do. We have to go to the place where that connectiveness doesn't exist, or in terms of how we experience it. And we do this unconsciously even. So we are sent into these experiences so we can bring light and balance to them. And we get refreshed when we get that sense of connectedness again. But the more we do that, the better of a sense we get of how to bring balance to those chaotic experiences, so that it's no longer running and returning, or it's running and returning so quickly that it all seems like one thing.
And that smacks of the effort that Richard was talking about. We perceive it as effort initially, but at some point in time when we do it enough, we get to the point that you're talking about, that really there is no effort.
Right.
We don't run and return. We just are. We just be.
Right.
Yeah, because what I took Richard's effort is an effort not to do work, basically. Like an effort to allow yourself to be free. So it's kind of like the reverse.
Well, I mean, apply that to all of our religious traditions, mainstream religious traditions and understandings. Sacrifice, all these kinds of things, and yet the original intent was pleasure and effortless experience, connection to the experience. We've created all of this from our misunderstandings. And I can just see it in various techniques that are around, and I know I'm scratching the surface. Lord knows what's out there that deals with this in a much more direct way. But that's what I meant, which is why anyone who sits down, whether you cross your legs or not, and tries to meditate, you're slapping yourself all over the place in the beginning to stay focused, so to speak. So that's effort. All that's interfering with it. Sometimes you can't break through a bit until you're so tired you stop trying, kind of thing.
Well, Exactly, and the real source of, or the real thing behind the effort that we feel is because it's very difficult to release our grasp of the things that we become addicted to. The effort is the withdrawal symptoms that we go through. That is the only reason we feel like it's so much work. In the original human state, or the original state of mankind anyway, it was before we had to, I was referring to the thing in Genesis where by the sweat of your brow you get all the stuff that you want. Everything becomes work because you have removed yourself from that original state, your center from where you came.
Right.
And one thing I also wanted to add was something I thought of like a while ago. This whole experience of effort and sort of you have to go through a ton of effort in order to get to the effort, the state, is kind of like how life doesn't really get any easier. It just, you get stronger as you progress through life, and so it feels easier. It's the same type of idea.
Well, I think too, you let go of things, right?
Right. Which is where we just, that you allow yourself to go through that withdrawal symptom.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to everybody, how do you live to be 100? How do you stay married, for 50 years? You pick your fights, you learn to let go of, you learn through your experiences what isn't important, stuff like that. So yeah, you spend a lifetime trying to get back to the beginning, which I find kind of paradoxical, but it seems to be it. It's just all because we ate from the wrong tree first. So we went out thinking we knew what we knew without knowing what we do. Anyway, so we didn't know how to use it. We spent all of our time trying to fix it. Yeah. But I'm saying it takes a tremendous amount of, it's like being out of shape and trying to get back in shape. It takes a lot. Everybody's out on the road jogging, right?
I was just gonna say that.
Oh.
It begins that way. So let's say you recognize that your body is out of shape, you want to get back in shape. Then you work on the physical. Then once the physical is in place, you recognize that your mind, you don't feel so well psychologically. Then you work on the psychological. Then you can go deeper than that because your psychological self is just a product of your actual self. But it doesn't always happen in that linear way, but it kind of does in spurts and at different points in our lives. We can be at any place in that process or realize that that process is taking place, or some aspect of that process. So in terms of, like Evelyn, when you were saying in the beginning, all that psychological weight, that's you recognizing where you were at a psychological point. And that recognition has to take place in order to begin to learn how to return to the center in order to release that stuff.
Okay.
So we're teaching ourselves how to let things flow through us so we can focus on their source rather than get caught up in them.
Okay.
When you say focus on their source,
Our source.
you said their source or our
You
source?
said, he says their source.
I said there,
The source of.
What do you mean?
we are their source. It's same thing.
Oh, you mean in terms of us realizing that we don't have to focus on them or whatever?
No, I think that there is the source of the thing that is the distraction or whatever, right? The whole idea of going back through the eye of the needle, Ewa, whatever.
Okay, say what you said again.
So yeah, let me rephrase that. The source of the distraction is us. We are also the solution.
Or
So whatever we become attached to, we get caught up in. It becomes a hindrance.
could you take that
And by
idea?
releasing our attachment to it, we can return to our source.
Boy, does our culture need to have that notion hover over us for a while.
So in Buddhism, when they're talking about attachment, that's what they're talking about. And mystic Christianity has it. The mystic aspects of Hinduism has it. Sufism has it. Anything that is designed to help you get back in touch with what you are and what this is has the same variation or variation on the same thing, because they all come from the same place, and they all recognize that they are going to the same place. It's all food for your spirit. It just tastes different. It's all light. It's just been passed through a prism and been split up into a bunch of colors, but put it back together and they all go back to the same white. So I want to go into a little bit new topic. It's related to this, especially because we just started talking about effort and how we actually get back. But I wanted to ask to make sure everybody was okay before I did that.
Go slow while I take a bathroom break.
Okay.
Just tell a joke. Two Jews walking to the bar. No.
Well, actually, it's a little bit of a tangent, but while the bathroom break is taking place, this reminds me, and I don't have it with me to do other than a bad paraphrase. This is part of Einstein, I think's observation, and I think he was talking about the atomic bomb. If you like, the attitude and the intelligence that created the bomb will not find a solution to how to deal with it. It will require a new understanding and a new effort. And I think this is part of what Obama tried to say in the notion that something changed because of what happened in Connecticut, things like that. We have to free ourselves to look at these problems in a new way. And I think that's part of the challenge of what we're in the middle of right now. Some people want to, and others it obliges others to hold more tenaciously and more ridiculously to the old way of seeing things. You know what I mean? So it makes everything seem more disparate. Nothing's headed toward the center, everything's headed toward the opposite end of the room, kind of thing at the moment. Because it obliges, when you have to let go, some people hold on tighter.
Yeah.
So that goes on inside of you, too.
Yep.
This stuff has power.
Try to see you guys next week.
Okay,
All right, Kevin.
Bye.
Yeah, have a good one.
Okay.
glad you're coming. Okay, the bathroom break's over.
We waited for you.
So,
So in 24
I
minutes.
wanted to, for some reason I feel like I want to, talk about Lucifer and what that actually is.
What?
Lucifer.
Oh,
Yep. So, part of the reason I want to do, or I feel like it's good timing, is because we just came off the discussion about effort. So in other words, what it takes to actually get back to our sense of self and our sense of center. And Lucifer, or whatever that actually is, regardless of what religion is created it to be, is related to that process, this process. So basically, what has happened to that? First of all, the word Lucifer does not appear anywhere in the Bible. And in fact, the actual word that is used is only used one time in the entire book.
There you go.
And the actual word is like Halel or something. It's used once. I don't know how they went from Halel to Lucifer in the Latin translation, but they did. Anyway, essentially what that concept is, and I think it was introduced for a particular bunch of reasons. But anyway, what that concept is the vehicle through which we do the work or put in the effort of returning. What I mean by that is Lucifer, or the concept that that represents anyway, is nothing except what we say it is. It is nothing except for the energy that we put into it. And there are two polarities of this energy, of this concept, of this vehicle. And whichever one we put energy into, that's what it produces, and that's what it becomes to us in terms of how we treat it. So, first off, anyway, the translation of the actual word that is used, Halel, means morning star in most translations, I believe. So I think everyone's probably heard that. And the word Lucifer means light something. Strangely enough, I think the Vatican has a telescope and they call it Lucifer, which is weird, but the Vatican is strange.
Unless they're trying to see that spiritual, unless they're using that physical example to try to see the real spiritual life that they haven't got quite seen yet.
Well, luz in Portuguese means light.
Yeah, the prefix luz means light, in lucid, as in lucid dreaming, all that stuff. I don't think the Vatican did it because they knew what it actually meant, and they just kept it for themselves.
Yep. There you go.
Which is, that's exactly what they did.
And they
But anyway,
completely lost control of it, right?
yeah, and I don't actually know what the Catholic official stance on that is, but the Catholics are interesting in terms of what they put into the official canon of their belief or whatever. But anyway, so the word translated to morning star, or son of the morning, son of the dawn, in terms of actual planets, is usually attributed to Venus, because Venus is the brightest thing in the sky besides the moon at night. And it's the reason it's the first one we can see in the morning, or rather the last one we can see in the morning, and the first one we can see at night is because it's brighter than the other star-like objects. So it's weird because despite the fact that Christianity in this country in particular associates Lucifer with Satan, Jesus is also called that, or the Christ is also called that, the morning star, the bright morning star. So why would they attribute this thing to Satan even though Christ is called that? And what I said a couple of minutes ago about the two polarities of what this thing is, it relates to this. On one polarity, it is, depending on how we use it, it can be satanic. And don't let that word scare you. But on the other polarity, it is Christ-like.
The angel of light, yeah.
But it is what we choose to use it for. So part of the reason I'm bringing this up is because we are, as a world, moving into a place technologically where we're going to be able to do some amazing, amazing, amazing things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the energy and the attitude we have towards it is what makes Lucifer an agent of Christ or an agent of the adversary.
Agent of Christ or an agent of what?
The adversary.
Oh.
More confusion.
So check it out. As an agent of adversarial thoughts, Lucifer is in this polarity anyway, in the negative one, Lucifer is us making ourselves into our own conception of what God is.
Mm-hmm.
In the positive polarity of it, it is actually allowing the energy that we are connected to work through us for the purpose of transforming the whole, so that we can become what we were actually created to be and what we actually are, as opposed to our idea of what we should be.
Mm-hmm.
So in the negative sense of what this whole concept means, it relates to our application of our intellect to the effort or the work it takes to get back to what we consider a godlike state. Now, technologically speaking, from the materialist mindset, this means the ultimate ability to manipulate matter. Because if you think materially, there is nothing higher than that. If you can manipulate matter however you want, whenever you want, to the precise degree that you want, there is no other pursuit. You have become the ultimate master of your experience. You have made yourself into what you think of as God.
And in essence, it's tied you to the material state. In effect, if that's all you think is the be all, being able to master materialism.
Yeah.
Nick,
But what I'm trying to get at, I got you, Ellen. What I'm trying to get at is the attitude
Right.
behind this.
Okay.
So the negative aspect of this is the attitude that we can do it on our own.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit tricky because what I mean by that is that we tend to think that we can do it in a state of ignorance. Ultimately, whether or not we are aware of the fact that we're ignorant or not. And that's the negative side of it. And the positive side of it, we recognize our ignorance and we don't try to do it within the limitations of our intellect. We don't try to return to our original state by forcing our own intellectual ignorance onto reality, which is what is happening in the negative side of this. Evelyn, do you have...
isn't that why Lucifer was kicked out of the heavens? Because he was trying to manipulate, well, he thought that he was equal to God, or isn't that why he got kicked out?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, and it makes
So-
sense now.
Check it out. So, depending on which rabbi you ask, they would never say that there was rebellion. How can something that is rebelled against its own creator type thing? What it actually was. So the verse is how mighty you used to be, but how you were cast down into the earth. Look how low you have sunk.
Mm-hmm.
In reference to Lucifer or Halo. So what it's actually saying is it's referring to the method that we have used and our ideas of what that method should be to get back to our original state. The method that got us kicked out of heaven, got us kicked out of the Garden of Eden, got us removed from our original state, was the idea that we could do it divorced from our true self and do it how we wanted to in our state of relative ignorance. So whatever we had at the time, we said, this is enough. We can do it. Peace out.
We pieced out all right.
Yeah.
But that's why he was the angel. Okay, so why was he the angel of light? Because that's what Lucifer means, right? The angel of light?
Well, Lucifer
I think.
is a Latin word. The actual word that's used is halo,
do
which
you
usually
spell
refers to the star.
H-E-L-O?
How do you spell that, Nick?
The Hebrew one,
Yeah.
Heylel
L-E-L.
is usually how it's spelled in English. in reference to this this polarity, these two sort of different sides of what this is, you can think of the planet Venus, which is usually referred to, rising at night and descending in the morning. So there's those two sides to it. The rising at night is the negative side of it, or negative quote unquote. It's that one polarity of it. Because the rising at night is heralding the advent or the coming of the night in terms of your experience, your relative state of darkness and ignorance and all that stuff, which doesn't have to be a bad thing. We just tend to make it worse than it needs to be, or whatever. And, yep.
I see where Lucifer was translated Jerome. You know, he's one of the guys that
I can't wait to meet a
he
Jerome.
was a scribe or something. Anyway, in Isaiah 14:12, he understood that this Isaiah 14:12 was talking about Satan. So in his own understanding of that, he translated the Hebrew word Hallel into Latin as Lucifer. So it was based on his own understanding that 14:12 was talking about Satan.
Yeah.
So that's how we got that translation.
Yeah. So I think people who do that make assumptions based on their knowledge and experience, but...
So wait, Nick, so are you saying at its core, the concept of Hallel, well maybe it is Hallel, or
There's
Satan,
also Hillel.
Lucifer, Hallel, sorry, is
a Hillel.
what do you want to say at its core? Let me
make it clear, Satan and Lucifer are two different things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm talking about this one.
Satan's an interpretation.
Hallel is a noun that comes from the verb Hallal. Means to shine, or refers to all the things that Nick is talking about.
So what is Hillel? Hillel.
What is that?
Oh, that's a good question. Hillel is it's like study. When you go to Hillel, you go to learn.
Yeah. You
Okay.
mean in the Muslim?
No, it's Jewish.
But isn't there a similar term in Islam?
Oh, that's halal, which
That's
means
halal.
you can't eat it.
No, I didn't mean that. I thought the study. Okay.
Oh,
All right. No, never mind. All right.
I mean,
Butcher
halal,
an
right?
animal.
Halal, does that mean you can or can't? It's
What's the name of the school?
That means you can. Halal
What's the
means
Islamic
you can.
school?
Okay.
They have 1,000 trucks and carts across New York. $5, lamb and chicken over rice.
Steaming chicken, Sheldon. You shouldn't eat it. Satan's chicken.
I'll tell you about my experience later on today.
It was delicious in the beginning, wasn't it? What was I saying? Oh, so okay, yeah. Satan and this entity called Lucifer are two separate things. Kind of related, but they're not. Somebody just mashed them together, and no, they're not. What was it?
So if it means light bringing, then
Yes. Oh, there we go.
okay, all right. So you're back on track.
So it's the herald of something. And that something is determined by us, whether or not we are attempting to return to our center or to our source using our own ignorance, essentially, or whether we're allowing the energy that we are to flow through us to inform us of what we are ignorant of. So whether we're doing it intellectually or whether we're doing it through the agency of what is the Christ principle. So if Lucifer is the light bringer and you are the light of the world, Lucifer is a vehicle. It's a method. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you could be, as we said, you could be dark light or you can be light light. You can be a chaotic principle or you could be the Christ-like principle. When we force our own intellect onto reality, we are the dark light chaos-ness of this principle. So we are saying that, look, we can do everything we need to do without the agency of actual knowledge. And in the Christ paradigm, we recognize that, yes, we can do all this stuff, but we still don't actually know what the heck we're doing.
So it's a vehicle that exposes the light that we are showing forth.
Exposes or?
Yes, or brings it to a head, returns it to as far as it can possibly go.
So it helps us see, or help others see also the light.
Yeah, it can.
Okay, now I'm confused.
What we want them to see.
I mean,
What I'm understanding-
if I'm seen as an evil person by others, and if inside myself I think I am no good and there's nothing in me that's good and blah 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 blah, I can let those experiences define all of that stuff in me, and therefore my attitude toward others shows this stuff in me. Or I can allow this vehicle, this whatever it is that shows me. I can choose that. I can say that this is not. I'm not this evil thing. I am created in the image of the source of all creation. So, in other words, I can choose how this vehicle how I will use it, in a sense. If I understand that it's light bringing, it can bring an artificial light, or not artificial. What's the other word for a light that's not genuine?
That's a good word.
Okay, or the genuine light. Either one of those can be, for lack of a better word, exposed to me.
Okay, I guess I'm lost because I'm hearing something different. What comes to my mind is as much an image of a mirror as anything. So that Lucifer, how we define Lucifer or Lucifer's function. Lucifer heralds basically an extension of what we ultimately see ourselves to be. If we're
Right.
seeing ourselves as the true and good, for want of a better expression, light, then Lucifer's not a negative thing.
That's what I just said. You're just framing it differently.
Okay, well that's...
Yeah.
So you want me to shut up or what?
No, I'm just saying, because what you said is that's not what you heard, which is I think the beauty of this. We all understand it from the perspective that we have, as long as it's the same truth. So in other words, I won't discount the way you see it.
No, that's the point. You're right.
Don't discount the way I see
So
it.
that
I
everybody-
can't discount the way
Right.
Janice would see it.
Right.
Is what my point.
So everybody can go home with some understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, Mother.
So you're
Wow.
saying Lucifer is the light bringer. Now when he brings it and we accept it, we either shape it through our intelligence, or we let it be what it is. And in terms of shaping it through our intelligence and through us not being connected to who we really are, it can become evil.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So, but the evil in that situation comes from us.
Right.
Right. No, our perception and our trying to shape it makes it evil.
we're trying to create in our own image apart
Yeah.
from connection
Yes.
with our source.
So let me add something else to it. So, or try to explain it a different way. So
Okay.
we're in this physical experience trying to find out what the ultimate purpose of our being here is. In the materialist sense, in the sort of the negative polarity of what Lucifer can do, and because Lucifer is a vehicle, it can help us get to wherever we want to go. So in the material sense, which is a state of ignorance, unaware of our true source, the vehicle that we use is our intellect and our physical technology, because that becomes the highest goal, is the perfection of this physical technology that we produce. So in that sense, Lucifer has become a vehicle for an entity that is still ignorant of its true source.
Okay.
If that helps.
Yeah, but I guess my point was, ultimately Lucifer, that's why I thought of something like mirror representation. It's we're defining Lucifer, or Lucifer's becoming, Lucifer responds to what it is that we see, I guess you could say.
Yes, you could say that Lucifer it's just there.
So
It is
this-
what it is, and then we turn it into whatever we need it to be.
So back in another sense, as we said earlier, like in Haiti, the whole concept of voodoo, in and of itself, that energy and the ability to manipulate and work with that energy isn't in and of itself good or bad. It's how it's used. It's how the understanding of people, what the understanding of people are,
Right.
who can access it, do with it. Right? So
Right.
Lucifer, that's what I meant by he's sort of a mirror. So the old Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it, it's true.
Yeah.
If the devil is me, yeah.
Yeah.
We just associated that with negative.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
in
it
that
is
sense,
negative.
when we
You
talk
just-
about
Just
You're
doing it within
evil.
yourself, out of yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, you could be facetious and make the joke, but that could be a good thing.
Flip wasn't being
I mean, really try to drive people nuts. Tell people the devil's not a bad. I mean, pretend it's a physical thing, whatever you want. You know, the devil. The function of the devil is to create chaos, confusion, distraction, stuff we ultimately call sin. No, that's the ultimate extension of our ignorance. The devil's just standing there saying, "I'm doing what you want me to do.
I'm the light.
I'm your light,
I'm the light bringer.
your light bringer, the light that you made, so to speak, bringer, right?"
So, don't wait.
Okay.
I made the distinction between the Satan or the devil and
Okay.
Lucifer. So
Okay.
those are two different things, two different concepts. So you could say that Lucifer encapsulates whatever light you have chosen to enhance.
Okay.
Either the
Okay.
chaotic state, which would be the influence of Satan, or the light, which would be the influence of Christ. Lucifer takes whatever you give it, and then goes as far as it can. You go as far as you can with it, as you can, based on whichever polarity you came from. So in the beginning in Isaiah, this star or halo is being talked about as if it's fallen down to the earth. In Revelation, the Christ or Jesus associates himself with it. So in Revelation, or through the dawning of the Christ awareness, you have the redemption of the being of light, which is us, through the agency of Lucifer, which is the herald of that being. Because when Venus is going down in the morning, the sun is coming up.
Where is it? Where in Revelation?
Hang on, I actually got this one. It is 22:16.
I hesitate to even bring this up because it's 12 o'clock, but I'm curious about our associations with Venus. And I guess, the energy associated with Venus and being considered like a feminine, I guess, type of energy.
Yeah.
It's a can of worms,
This-
right?
Yeah, I think we'll get into that next week, but
Okay.
Venus is the one associated with the sexuality, femininity, the color green, and all that is related.
Okay. Good, good, good.
Because
Okay.
just like we have this in Isaiah, Lucifer or the star or whatever, it's down in the earth, in other words, in the ignorant state. And in Revelations, it's redeemed and brought back up out of that state through the agency of the Christ principle. You also have sexuality and feminine, and they're associated with the serpent or the green snake. So, just like in Genesis, you have the snake going down to eat dust or whatever. So does Jesus say that you have to raise me up, like Moses raised the serpent in the desert. So that's the energy returning back to its original state. So you have these two things, and we can choose whichever one. But the point I'm trying to make is that in the negative sense, Lucifer can only take you so far. Mastery of the physical experience and mastery of matter is relatively, it's nothing. It allows you to live in ignorance for as long as possible. Anyway, we'll definitely come back to this next week, but I just wanted to put that out there as the next thing I wanted to talk about. Let's see.
So what's the devil?
What
So,
are you saying? Oh, sorry.
so we take whatever light is available through Lucifer and we make it good or evil. Is that
So,
what you're essentially saying?
So we are the light, right? And we fill this vehicle with whatever light we have
Or we
chosen
also
to be.
Lucifer?
We give the power to Lucifer. Obviously, the type of power we give, so to speak, is based on our understanding of who we are.
Right. And whether or not
So
in our ignorance we have declared ourselves God of a certain realm, or we recognize what we have left to learn and seek our true source and then go further than that.
No, I guess what I was trying to understand earlier, so then Lucifer offers the opportunity for us to better understand the truth of our selves. Lucifer's not good or bad, right? You're distinguishing between Lucifer and the
Right.
devil. I'm not quite sure I go back to see then what Satan is, but, or even a reference to the Bible, but Lucifer is, yeah, it's that's why
So-
I got the word like mirror, I guess, but.
Right, but yeah, and understand it's whatever we bring to it. So we energize it.
Yeah, so Lucifer would just say, I'm just doing what you want me to do. I'm just taking it to the extreme.
And so it is not the goal. Rather, it's the what I meant by herald. It's the indicator of the direction that we're traveling in. And it can only take us so far depending on what we are riding inside it. Yeah, we'll definitely come back to this next week, but any other questions or anything just from what we just talked about?
Well, just help me have at least some notion then of what I should understand of the term devil,
So,
if any.
right. So, what you were saying, like, the entity that's set up to put pressure on you to make a choice between those two polarities, negative or the positive, the intellectual relative ignorance one or the energy of Christ. Then, whichever one of those you make the choice for, then the concept, the thing called Lucifer comes into play. The halo star comes into play.
Okay, but you're not answering my question about devil, or are you just saying devil is synonymous with Lucifer?
No, I did answer it. I said it's the entity that puts pressure on you to make a choice.
Okay, so the devil makes you choose. The devil doesn't make you do it, he makes you choose what you're going to do.
Yes.
Lucifer, the word personifies is not the right word, but is a manifestation of the direction that that energy is, and it is an energy that pulls you in the direction you've said by your decision you want to go,
Yes.
which is toward Satan or Christ.
Which is toward the ultimate goal. Which is, yes, either Christ-like or your idea of what God is. In your relative state of ignorance, which is a satanic idea.
Right, right. Got it. Say no more.
You're like, quit before.
Well, quit so I don't drive in the other car on my way home. Let that sink in.
Nick, you may have to draw this out next week.
No, but we can
Yeah,
draw,
I will.
you could draw it on the board right now.
You could.
Or he could.
You don't want me to draw anything right now.
Oh, you want me to? Well, I should stop. I should just stop.
No, but if, I guess I see it as a triangle. Well, anyway. You go back to the original point, which is you.
Yeah. Actually, let me just do it.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
We're here.
Okay. Yep.
Lucifer to me is the meter between Satan and Christ. The directional meter signal. I can't.
I know, I said, I can see in my head what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's too
Can everybody see that?
I gotta do it in an image or I can't hold
Okay.
on to it.
So, here's me. Down in the earth. And I have these two things that I could respond to the influence of. This thing that we call Satan. This is the little devil sitting on your shoulder. Or we can respond to the influence of the Christ, or what that is. So both of these things, or both of these experiences, weigh in on our overall experience in the whatever choice we decide to make. And then when we make the choice, we can go two directions. So this thing that has come to be called Lucifer takes place in both of these. So in the negative one,
Yeah, let's stick them in the middle.
yeah. In the negative one over here on the left, we have in Isaiah where it says you'll be cast down to the earth. So here's me inside my little vehicle. In the negative one, you are stuck. Make that line better. You cannot progress any farther other than the mastery of materialism. Because that is what you perceive to be the ultimate goal based on who you think you are as a physical being.
Can I ask you a question right there?
In other words, you're stuck in the earth. Yes, but
Implicit in that limitness, is there a sense that there's more harm than good, or just?
yeah, you mean stuck in this paradigm on the left here?
Well, if I take that and apply that to the dangerous, we're on the cusp in the beginning. I believe like you, of the ability to do things with technology that we have no real understanding of, but we're so excited and seduced by. So it's no different than a gun. It's like we're giving those Bushmasters to kids, and we're the kids. You know what I'm saying? When the real requirement is that we mature with the technology, so to speak. And that's the big risk. And then you can come down on either side of that argument. But it's going to speed up, and the impact, the effect is going to be much more profound. Well, at least in our sense, more profound. Maybe it was originally just as profound. But so the stakes are higher, so to speak.
Right.
Which implies that if you took the course to the left, it's not just you bump into the ceiling, so to speak, but there's a real destructive, negative, there's a dangerous thing there as well.
Right. That is exactly correct. The danger is you can get almost infinitely caught up in your own delusion.
Yes.
And be stuck here in terms of you're not yet getting at your true source. But for example, let's say physically, technologically, we discovered the ability to keep these physical bodies immortal. And we're like, oh, everybody's so happy about that. Woo, we're immortal. Okay, then what? You haven't gotten to the real source of what this is. You just played around with your ability to manipulate it to the point where you can satisfy your ego to the maximum. But there's a problem with that, because if you get to that point and you become so engaged with it, it becomes almost infinitely difficult to disengage from it and go further.
Well, you've cut off the process of reincarnation. And if I'm not mistaken, that process is designed to help us
exactly
come to grips with who we are and eventually escape the illusion that we're projecting.
Exactly. And yeah, that's exactly part of it. And this is just an example of one of the ways you can screw up by going this route.
Well, this is Scrooge McDuck, right?
So,
yeah, okay.
In the other side of it,
too much money is a bad thing.
Lucifer, or whatever this is where it's mentioned. So over here is the Isaiah reference. And over here is the Revelation reference. It was 22:16. And then Isaiah something or other. 14:12. And over here, we have the redemption of ourselves. So instead of, the word is masturbate. Instead of masturbating to ourselves, we actually do some intercourse with the Creator. So, and there goes the sexual stuff again, but it's completely and totally relevant and related to all of this. So over here, we're like, oh yeah, we can do, look at all this fancy stuff we can do. Great. You're still just moving blocks from one place to another, like you did when you were 3. Now you're doing it on the level of molecules. Fantastic. Over here in the Revelations is the redemption of us and our own understanding of who we are. So instead of essentially putting a limit on ourselves by saying, look how smart I am, this is as smart as we can ever be, we allow our true source, the I, to speak through us and inform us of the fact that 1, we are ignorant, and 2, here is where to go from there. Because this over here on the left, this cannot be the Creator. The Creator is infinite, and all you do is move physical stuff from one place to another. That is not anybody's actual idea of the Creator, other than your own. It's not the Creator, because if the Creator is infinite, you just place the limit on it, and so you must be wrong. By definition.
Well, I think that's the concept of God that so many atheists rail against.
Say that again?
That concept of God that you just erased, that's limited and is moving blocks from one place to another, that's the concept that so many atheists rail against. They see that and have issue with it. Huh?
I think that's most people's conception of what that even is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Um,
there's a misunderstanding.
which we are seeking to destroy in here,
Mm-hmm.
in us, so we can actually understand what this is.
But
But anyway, so let me just draw a thing. So, on the other side, with the redemption of your own understanding of who and what you are and how to draw from your source, you can go further than you could in the other paradigm. And in fact, you can continue the process of fully merging with your source, as opposed to feeling all good about yourself that you've made you've made a really good block for it instead of a basic one. Does that make sense anyway?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So out of curiosity, is you said that Lucifer is a vehicle. Is the circle the vehicle that the person is
Yeah.
in? Okay.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
So we say that Lucifer is the light bringer,
Mhm.
and it does also say that we are the light of the world. So what does Lucifer bring?
You.
It's the method you employ to get yourself back to where you think you belong.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And over here in materialism, you think you belong to the master of this material realm.
It's revelation.
And even though you're kind of we are supposed to be, it's not in the same sense. Like, this is not what we're for. This is just something that we can also do. Materialism.
It's for you.
Oh, okay. It's for the TV.
So,
That's what the insurance company
that's
paid off, so I guess it's for you.
kind of what I wanted to convey to you. And really, it's like an attitude. It's whether you realize that you don't yet know everything and you open yourself up to know more than you currently do, which is over here, or you use what you have and assume that that's all you will ever have and try to refine it as much as possible over here. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to stop here for today.
That's a lot.
Like, don't ask me any more questions.
Well, so does she. We don't need to get it, you know.
I got it in here too.
Nick, do me a favor and save that,
Okay.
and at least send it to me unless somebody else wants it to.
Okay. Well, I'll send it to you guys and then
Okay?
I don't have everybody's email address, but you can send it to whoever.
No, I don't want to take you through my therapy.
I'd like it too, Mrs. Rania.
Okay.
No, I just, okay. Oh, okay, sorry not to wait.
I'll go with you next week.
No, it won't be there next week, don't worry about it.
You said no?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the light of truth that we are. Keeps bringing new meaning to how important light is, the light of truth that we are, and the truth of light that we are. Has us to know that we are beings designed to allow it to flow through us so that all of mankind is blessed. Amen.